Hello and welcome to this next module in our course, Politics and Power. As a reminder, this will be recorded at regular speed. You'll be able to pause and start as needed, replay as needed as well. So let's hop right into the information. Politics. So I've got multiple definitions for you here, but before we get into that, let's think about this for a second. When you hear the term politics, it doesn't really conjure up images of puppy dogs and fields of clover, now does it? It's not exactly a word we like to hear. It doesn't sit well and things like that. Well, lo and behold, let's look at one of our definitions here. People competing for personal advantage. I've given you the first definition here. It's very generic. It's something we could apply to the workplace as well as study of politics. But people competing for personal advantage. We all have some experience with that, right? So next definition here. The art of governing humanity by deceiving it. Now, I'm not trying to stir anybody's pot or anything like that, but I just said a minute ago, this is not a term we particularly like hearing. It doesn't sit well with us. Well, guess what? The definition you see right here, that pops up in many a textbook when we talk about this subject, because why? We don't like it. We've studied it, how we don't like it. And it's something that the scholars and research address. This is not particularly a topic that sits well with us when we look at this general concept of politics. Another definition, conducting public affairs for private gain. Again, this is a course and we are approaching this from a scholarly perspective. Again, we have to address this is how we view the general topic of politics. Now, here's a less snarky definition, a little bit more middle of the road. Process of who gets what, when, and how. Okay. Now, my background is a little bit more in economics, and this is a definition that really speaks to me in that background. Process of who gets what, when, and how. What does this imply, at least to me? Scarcity. We can't do everything for everybody. We have limited resources and things like that, right? So process, that's just a word that it describes a dynamic, not static situation of who gets what, when, and how. And this is actually my more favorite definition. Process by which values are authoritatively allocated for society. All right. Now, when we look at this, process by which values, again, what's a value? Well, if we were in a regular classroom, I'd ask that question, and typically I get some answers here and there, but it's just real simple. It's it's something that's important, okay? Now, but then you start thinking, all right, Mitch, I'm already looking ahead. What is this authoritatively allocated? What does that mean? That's a fancy way of saying it's forced on us. Yeah, it may be something we like, something we don't like, but it's not something we necessarily have a lot of control over. Again, this definition does speak to scarcity. We can't do everything for everybody. All right. Now, moving on, let's talk about power. All right. Power is a sister companion to the study of politics. Let's give you a little definition of power here for a second. Power, the ability to influence the behavior of others. Some of you are business majors, you've studied this a little bit, but power is really when you have something or someone in a dynamic that causes people to act differently, to behave differently, okay? Now again, we're in the middle of talking about politics, right? So what is the definition of political power? All right, we just stick, political in front of behavior, same definition, and there we have a good working definition of political power, the ability to influence the political behavior of others. Now I want you to think about this for a second. Political power isn't just those folks sitting in the halls of power, creating policy, and making those kinds of decisions. It can very well be very simple, very local. I've said this for years. What if? You hang out with one of your fellow students here at Belmont Abbey, and over the course of an 8-week session or a semester, you change their political views on something. Maybe they decide to vote for someone else in the upcoming election because of your dialogue and influence on them. That is political power in a very local sense. Okay? Now, let's move on. Now let's talk about power, different manifestations of it. I'm about ready to go through a model. It's from business theory. I borrow it. Uh, there are different models out there to describe power, but really the takeaway is power isn't just power. There are different manifestations of it. And so let's hop into this model. Reward, the ability to provide what others want. Okay? Now, yes, we can think about this in terms of boss subordinate in our work lives, right? My boss can give me a raise, can give me a bonus, tell me I can go home early on a Friday, give me a nice cube with a window, all those things that are nice, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be that superior subordinate relationship. You can be peer to peer. Anyone who is in a position to provide something to others that others desire is a source of power, okay? And the same is true with government as well, all right? So reward, the ability to provide what others want. The flip side of that same coin, the ability to punish. Now again, the quickest thing to think about this in terms of our work lives or with the government, it would be termination, suspension, docking pay, all those things, all those nasty things. If I don't pay my taxes, the government can garnish my wages and the like. But also this does extend beyond just those authoritative relationships. Anyone or anything in a position to produce a negative for someone else, coercive. All right, expert, based on knowledge or expertise. Now, this is something I always I've said this over the years that if you're at work and your PC goes down, who has the most power over you? Over anybody? It's IT. They're the ones who are in the position to get you back up and running. Okay, but when we think about expert power, and especially when I think of expert power with the government, I think of the CDC in particular, the Centers for Disease Control. Through their knowledge and expertise, they can direct a lot of different things in society. Remember several years ago, if you remember as well, H1N1. It was late winter, early spring. It was really after flu season should have been over. But H1N1 was spreading, pretty quickly. They thought it was packing a big punch beyond just being very contagious. They were a hair away from declaring a pandemic. Had they declared a pandemic based on their expertise in public health, a lot of organizations would have made decisions based on that, right? When the Federal Reserve, through their expertise, makes certain decisions and comments about the economy, we listen, right? Based on their knowledge and expertise. Referent power. Now, when you rank power, this is probably the most effective when president. It's based on the individual. It's based on charisma and our respect in that individual. Think in your own life, people professionally, personally, that you just can't say no to. And it's not because of the questions being asked, it's the person who's asking the question. You just can't say no to this person. So think of, in those terms, I've used this example over the years, Bill Clinton. And I'm sure most politicians at that level or in corporate America, people reach that level, have similar gifts. But Bill Clinton in particular, they've always said he could walk into a room of Republicans and they would, everybody just drawn to him, wanting to do for him and the like. So referent power, based on that individual and the charisma and respect that comes to them. And lastly here, authority. And this is normally what we think about when we think of power, but we went through the other dimensions as well, right? This is where your boss has certain authority to tell you to do certain things and so forth. At your job, you are authorized to do certain things based on the title that you hold, right? And within the government, remember we've talked in the last module about defining constitution. This is along those same lines, establishing the legitimate authority and power, based on title, based on structure. All right. With that, this is the end of this module, and we will talk to you in the next module coming up. Thank you.